Total War series is huge and has been around for more than a decade. But if you're an RTS fan like me and haven't touched the series before, what can you expect from Total War Rome 2? There's a lot about Rome 2 that sets it apart from other strategy games. For starters, the game isn't entirely real-time or turn-based. Gameplay takes place in two separate modes, on the campaign map, which is turn-based, and in the deployment zone, which is real-time. In deployment mode, you might find that the pacing is kind of different to games like StarCraft 2 or Command & Conquer. Units move at a more realistic walking speed on the battlefield, something to keep in mind for when you're moving your troops around. This speed means you can take more time to make decisions. Rome 2 is a game that places emphasis on high-level strategy over micromanagement and clicks. You're more playing the role of a commanding general, not a reactionary multitasker. Of course, you can make your troops run to reach their destination points faster, but not without cost. If soldiers run for too long, they become fatigued, which lowers their morale. Running also makes your army more obvious from a distance, meaning enemies can see your moves from further away more easily. Unit pathing also plays an important role when managing your army. You probably don't want your troops to be poking out of a forest they're supposed to be hiding in, losing the advantage of a surprise flank attack. There's also the option to assign a group to an AI-controlled subordinate and instruct them to attack or defend a target. This leads to the other feature RTS veterans should be pretty good at keeping on top of: map awareness. Map awareness is important in Rome 2 because it'll be what helps you decide which approach is best for your army in deployment mode. You'll need to think about terrain and weather beyond just placement and fog of war effects. Muddy ground causes troops to become tired faster, charging uphill means cavalry won't hit as hard, and as mentioned, forests can be used to hide in by any party to set up ambushes. And honestly, you'll probably spend less time looking at the mini-map than you do the game map, which can have a lot going on in it. Keeping morale positive is just as important as watching over the health and fatigue of your army. A unit of soldiers with low morale is more likely going to flee any battles they engage in and ignore your orders. In other words, don't expect to send the same unit compositions in and get similar results each time. There are more things to consider than just the types of troops you have. Several factors affect morale, whether it be a unit with their flank exposed or taking fire from enemy projectiles. A general who commands an army with low morale has a higher chance of losing the battle. So, how do you actually recruit troops? Resources aren't farmed or mined. Instead, troops are recruited into armies on the campaign map, and that takes time. In friendly territory, recruiting is faster, as troops are sourced locally. In hostile zones, troops must be recruited in the form of mercenaries, which are more expensive. Players can only recruit as many troops as their influence reaches, and income is sourced from the number of cities the player manages. Using different types of troops will also have an effect on the morale of the army. For example, a unit of soldiers with high experience is less likely to flee from battle when the going gets tough, and having a general around will boost spirits. Players can also order units to assume different formations in the combat field to suit the situation. On the campaign map, the army can be ordered to assume stances, which have different pros and cons that come into play on the battlefield. For example, an army assuming the Fortify stance on the campaign map is granted defense bonuses and additional recruitment range, but is unable to move. That wraps up all the basic real-time strategy components of Total War Rome 2. Obviously, there's another layer of turn-based strategy on the campaign map to explore, but if you're an RTS fan looking for something different, Total War Rome 2 could be just what you're after. Be sure to stay tuned to GameSpot for the upcoming review. Total War Rome 2 will be out on September 3rd for PC.